One of the great preoccupations culturally of the last 100 years has been the silence of God. Particularly when you look at works of art or works of literature, this comes through as a major theme. I think of the films of Ingmar Bergman, or perhaps the plays of Samuel Beckett. What is striking about them is that there is a longing for God, a desire for God to speak, and yet there is nothing but silence that lies in the background. It's a question for Christians too. Where does God speak, and how does God speak? It's something I think that every Christian in a fallen world marked by suffering, marked by things that are not the way we feel they should be. It's a question we all ask ourselves. How does God speak, and where does he speak? How can we hear him speaking to us? Well, these are actually themes that are key to both the life of Luther, on whom I'm going to speak this evening, but also to the life of Elijah in the Old Testament. Tomorrow morning I'm hoping to speak on Elijah on Mount Carmel, and there's a great contrast there between the noise that the prophets of Baal make and the absolute silence of Baal himself. And yet when Elijah comes forward and calls upon his God, God answers, God speaks to him. Raises a question for us today as Christians. How does God speak to us today? Are we to expect God to answer us with fire, to answer us in the way that he dramatically answered his own prophet that day on Mount Carmel? Or has God decisively and definitively spoken to us in another way, a way that perhaps we often neglect but are not even aware of at times? That's the question I want to address tomorrow morning. Where and how does God speak to us? Does he whisper sweet nothings in our ears? Does he answer us by fire? Or does he answer us in a way that is much quieter in some ways, but much more decisive and powerful?